Very good evening to all of you. Is my presentation ready? Yeah, by the time that the presentation is getting unloaded, I'm representing a company, Netpolians India, which is a value-added distributor. But I think all the products and the tools and the technologies since morning you all have been going through. And I'll stick to the topic, which is relevant towards a generic concept about that how we can make a strategy and security towards the data centers. Before I'm just going into the different the concepts and the strategies for that, why I just wanted to take it because the multiple tools, multiple technologies, multiple softwares, the applications, we have it, but still after every 11 seconds we have a breach in our data centers. Still, that best practices are not been implemented. A couple of years back, one of the premier institute back in Delhi, which has tarnished the image of India in like as a developed country for the IT and the cybersecurity, that just only one misconfiguration of a firewall had led towards that the one of our biggest ransomware attack. And with a few of the concerned sources, we got to know that the ransom also had been paid. So why such things are happening? Let's be the devil's advocate on the other side of the table itself. That with all the due respect towards the tools, the technologies, they are the best. They have the AI, ML, the different LLM models, the different technologies, the best of the techniques which they wanted to deploy it with that. But finally, where we are lacking, that we need to understand where exactly is the source, and then what are the different components we have to build it all together. We all are the stakeholders. We are responsible. We have to look at that the two different types of India we are living in. One, that we don't have the basic concepts, the basic infrastructure deployed in our data centers. We don't have the different zone segregations in any of like as a perimeter network, perimeter zones, the demilitarized zone, the militarized zone, as well as a segregation of the management zone, the security zones perspective. Now, how many of you have taken that particular note with either as a customer, as a partner, as a technology vendor, that you have seen it? Because one India doesn't have the basics, and the other one we are talking about AI, ML, Agentic AI, and the different concepts. So my presentation is more from the perspective of that, from where I'm coming in, and what I'm just taking it. So the three different use cases, I do have it. This is for the last almost like 27 years of my career in IT, cybersecurity, and then doing some kind of a leadership in technology roles from the many years. These are the few cases, the RFPs, the architectures had been designed by me. And I have been very closely worked with all the stakeholders, be it onto the customer, the partner, consultant, the SIs, as well as a user perspective. So Delhi Safe City, I've seen that how difficult and complex structure was there. The PGCIL edge data center over the cloud structure, that while just designing that RFP, what was exactly more. The one of the use case we will discuss, the architecture, I'll just also show it to you. So it's just only to give you a food of thought that what are the things, what we are doing it at this, after this particular event, that you should have it in your mind that how exactly we have to take it forward from there. So recently that the Indian Navy SOC, that structure also happened, that like as a multiple different locations, the pan-India connectivity, that when we just wanted to connect it over there, the basic, the component DNS was not there. So when we look at that from that perspective, that the tools and the technologies always comes with the best practices. So if you have that best practices, if you have that all the stakeholders to work in conjunction for that, I think this is the best way to secure our network and infrastructure. So if I look at certain data center facts, we all talk about data centers. We know that the data center is everywhere, that we wanted to deploy it for the BFSI, for the manufacturing, for the telcos, for the government, for the homeland security, intelligence. The government is spending quite a lot for that. But are we there at the top? No, not yet. That we are holding that as much as the data of the whole world for it, because this is a market where every single software, every single hardware appliance wants to come to do the testing, to do all these particular, the use cases for the peak utilization of their applications, and then they have to sell it to the rest of of the world. So, but when you look at the basic infrastructure back in India, we lack that. This is what is global share, what we have it, the epic in Asian Pacific countries, whatever the leadership we contain it, that the maximum capacity of the megawatt, what we wanted to have it in data centers, that we retain it. When we look at the city-wise in India, Mumbai is taking the top of that. It is the proud moment for all of you. And then being very honest to you, that the many of the times when we do the gap assessment and then to do the analysis of any of an infrastructure, the city has a much better infrastructure from every single perspective, be it into your fintech, with the BFSI, with the homeland, with any of our other perspective. The rest of the states, the rest of the cities are still trying to cope up with it, but it's still yet to take that particular the top spot from Mumbai for this, right? The tier 2 and the tier 3 cities, they are leveling up like Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, as well as other cities like Jaipur is upcoming like as a trend for that. But still, that's many miles away we are from the top spot. The drivers, if you look at that, the enablers to make a data center, the regulatory push is there. I think from the BFSI perspective, RBI is making that. From the cloud perspective, mighty compliances are there. You already have seen all these particular the slides early in the morning since from the multiple vendors, the different OEMs as well. But when you look at the DPDP Act, which is making a much more push out of it, I think that it's not about the tool, it's about the framework, that how you have to devise your entire framework, the different tools, the practices, and the approach which you have to take it in a one single mode. AI and 5G demand, I think it's in a bigger way. I think one of our presentation was they are purely focused on to AI, but yes, AI also need the infrastructure, the beneath the entire infrastructure has to be very secure, very stronger. Then only the AI will work in a conjunction for this. But when you look at the infrastructure status for it, I think that the finances, that the deployment, the structures, and the industry has to focus more on towards the collaboration with other stakeholders as well. It totally depends on to you that how you have to take it. The investment in the economics, I think it's a crucial aspect. I'll just give you one of a use case for it, that the technology which has been devised, whenever we have to take it for any of a CIO for any technology, it also had to be approved by the CFO itself. So CFO must be tech savvy to understand that what exactly the technology of the tool which has to be utilized, and appropriate funds need to be worked out accordingly. Many of the tools had not been accepted just because of the funds had not been allocated appropriately. Many use cases are there, many light moments also had happened in our experience for that, but I think that the industry has to look as a long-term outlook for that, whether the 2027, 2030, 2047, our political leadership which has given as a developed country for it, we have to make a push for it and the funds had to be allocated appropriately. When we look at the cyber attacks, I think data speaks itself, and nobody can deny that any technology, any solution, any application can secure 100% your data center, right? So in that perspective, that after every 11 seconds, there is a data breach all over the world. But if you look at that from the Indian perspective, it's there about to like as a 9 to 10 seconds which the breach is happening. And many of the times that those particular things are not been reported into the public media or into the public sources as well, because there are very critical information which hasn't to come back in that part. But still, I'll say that many attacks which are happening, it's just not because of the tools or the technologies, it's just because of the lack of the best practices. Again, I'm re-emphasizing on that part. The data center cybersecurity, if you have to take away from there, it's like the volume from December 21 to 24, if the entire perspective you have to look at that how much of a readiness we do have it, it's like us that we are not prepared. We are reactive. We haven't seen that any of a proactive approach. It's like as a 1 to 2% of the industry, which is looking from the different mechanisms to secure your data center. But again, it's not about the tool based industry or the product-based industry where they'll secure it. The best of the practices or the best of the mechanisms which you have to deploy for that. The size is quite huge, but again, still you have to take it that the next by 2030, that $1.78 billion that's going to be a logical security which you have to deploy it. The readiness of cyber defense, what we have to make it, the certain also that make it different policies, different compliances, but as different agencies are also coming up with their computer, the cyber emergency and responses team for that. So now that the defense forces have their own cert, they do have like as their own feeds, they have their own responses team, and then immediately the proactive information. The major portion is about the national critical infrastructure. That's the critical infrastructure, NCI, PC compliances for that we are not ready. And you might be aware of that recently any of the confliction which has happened between the two different countries, the neighboring countries, that the many of the times that we have to be on our shoes or on our feet and then be onto the toes itself, you never know that how the attack and any of a thing could have come to us for this. So that's we are still lacking in it, and industry need to work on it. Market growth, which were for the cyber security spending, the government is spending for that. Industry is looking for it by the compliances, by the regulations. But still, if I look at the different tools or the different identities, zero trust is quite a buzzword. AI, ML is coming up with every single tool which is incubated in that perspective. But still, I believe that a lot of things have to be happen, and we have not reached up to that level or that scale where our security can be secure 100% for it, at least to reach up that level. As I mentioned that the recent Operation Sindoor, there were a few of a geopolitical activists were there activated, and many of the DDoS attacks had happened at that point in time. Many reports had been published in a public platform itself. You can go through with the different platforms like as a LinkedIn, Twitter, or Insta, that there are a number of DDoS attacks had happened, and we personally have worked on those particular attacks on the DDoS perspective itself, that how to be retained with that, because the attack was not limited towards any of a portal, any of a system. It's about the entire infrastructure, specifically with the power and utilities, specifically with the government and defense infrastructure scenarios, and specifically with our space research organizations as well. So a lot of things need to be worked out. So what is the next way forward for that? So we know that importance for the data center, that what is the role in a digital economy is there, that as like as a UPI, that whatever the communication or whatever the synchronization is happening for this. For the strategic planning, we have to do it for the security. It's not like as a one-time activity. It's a continuous process, the rigorous approach, which you have to deploy it, not only limited towards your one single data center, but it's more like from edge to edge-based data centers, the cloud connectivity, hybrid infrastructure, along with the on-prem and then air-gap networks as well. The focus area must be resilience, the infrastructure security, economics, and the future trends. And it's not limited towards the AI only. There are many other factors, like quantum is another one, which need to be worked out. Encryption, the different way out, the supercomputers, which our neighboring as well as the enemies countries are developing way beyond with that. A lot of debates, a lot of discussions that happen, and we should not be delve only limited towards one single focus area for that. Identity is coming as a big one. Zero trust is zero trust, not limited towards without any identity. So we have to look at it from the entire perspective as a bird view, that how our entire infrastructure has been designed. The multi-tenant and the cloud workloads, we know that either it's like as a Google or if it's a Amazon with a Microsoft, that they are like as the biggest cloud providers, but we do have it in India with many players, like as early in the morning, we have seen that the Sifi is there, Yota is there, as well as a Geo, and then many other players are there, which are providing those particular compliances for that as well. But still you have to secure your infrastructure by your own compliances. You have to do that particular cross-checks as well, be it as a partner, be it as a customer, being as a security, as a stakeholder for that, and then to look at that how your containers are secure, whether unutilized containers are not remained within that cloud or in any infrastructure as a hybrid mode for that. So overall, if you look at that, it's our responsibility, each one's responsibility, to make our infrastructure and then our company, organization, and then nation will be built secure in that per se. Uh, the compliance and regulatory frameworks, these should not be a check marks. This should not be a checklist for it. 94 controls for ISO 27001. I have done like exceptions are 9 or 10, and I would say that now my ISO 27001 is done. I have done my SOC 1 and SOC 2. We know how the auditors play for that. Let's understand that these are the loopholes. These are the points which we have to work all together for this. I think all these particular compliances are there where you have to deploy those tools, the policies, the compliances, the applications, and then all had to work seamlessly together. When you look at it from the entire perspective, then you'll see that these particular compliances or the regulatory framework are actually implemented, and then they are making it secure for that. This is not only just by the textbooks that you have to deploy it for that. What is the future of the data centers? I think AI native data centers, a lot of things had been discussed about it. Quantum safe cryptography, we need to do a lot of work for it. We're still on the journey. We have not reached up to a certain level. But I got to know that a few of the countries already have reached up to that way where the quantum cryptography also can be decrypted by certain supercomputers for that. So where we are reaching, we are not yet deployed the quantum networks into communication for that, and the countries or the other way around, the people have way for the decryption for this for that. Autonomous DC operations, it should not be limited towards your manual intervention, and then expansion of edge DCs. As many as edge DCs will be there on that particular side, I would believe that will give you an extra verge to secure your infrastructure. Partnering for resilience, as I said, that you have to be that with the MSSPs, the service providers, collaboration with the power or utility providers to look at out your power requirements for it. Vendor risk management, that's a very much required. Nowadays, there is a TPRM, third-party risk management, which does that. The automatic validation for any of a vulnerability assessment penetration for your vendors, because mostly the supply chain risk. Now, recently, one of our biggest value-added distributor got hacked and got ransomware attack has happened also. So it is the entire ecosystem of the vendor also got attacked for that, and that's only because of the third-party risk management. So if we do work on those particular things, rather than just only to give a focus on firewalls, IPS, then vulnerability assessment penetration, there are new terms, new technologies are there which we have to work on. These kind of conferences, workshops organized by the industry will give you an extra verge on that part. And this is where we have to collaborate. We need to have like as a trust advisor. We should be a vendor agnostic. If there is a tool which has to do a certain function requirement that has to be fulfilled, that's it, period. My function requirement need to be fulfilled for that, and that's what our role as an industry has to be playing in. Cyber insurance integration, which is upcoming like as the biggest new role for the industry, and then you all have to look at that. It's not like as the personal insurance for that, but it's equally important that as you do for your own self, that the insurance for your data centers. The partnering for resilience, I think that the consultancy, that the people who actually work on to those requirements. I think when you look at that, the BCP, the DCDR failover or a switchover, partial failover, full failover, how this the entire architecture has been devised. Many of the times I have seen that share you one of our use case, that one of an OEM, I'll not take the name of that, but he said that the legacy VPN can be replaced with a zero trust, and that the external user can go directly into a database which is residing into a militarized zone-based server. So it means that the first and the primary rule for ISO 27001 has been breached, because you have penetrated the entire system and reach up to the militarized zone. And it's into for one of the biggest other financial sector or the organization for it. So I think that the people who have the knowledge and that to be deployed, understand that, and what are the loopholes, what are the certain criterias which can hamper your entire infrastructure for that also need to be evaluated as well. So nobody is perfect in that part. And many of the times if I have designed something, it doesn't mean that 100% it will be a foolproof for it, because it's a rigorous improvement, the best of the structure, you have to do it on a regular basis. This is where you have to do it. All the consultants, all the partners, all the stakeholders have to come together and then to work for a one unique solution which need a regular intervention for the implementation. This is an architecture, public document, published in RFP, and this is a safe city data center architecture, approved by the major organizations in India, right? Like as a CDAC, Center for Development in Advanced Computing, as well as the Delhi Police. And this is the data center architecture devised in RFP for Delhi Safe City. This is designed. Now, when you look at that, how many of us have those particular architectures where the perimeter zone with the demilitarized zone, external and internal for the different users, and 32 different agencies have integrated their databases. Out of that, half of them have not been taken into an incremental databases for that, or the API integrations for that. API security is another aspect for it. How many of you have deployed the 3 different instances of any of an application, as an application would have it, like as your web application or an application server, web server, or your DNS or DHCP would be in a demilitarized zone, and then the rest of the components, like as a platform or a core engine, would be there into a militarized zone for it, along with the database server. How this integration is happening between DC to DR for this? If there is a DC, one instance got failed, how it could move towards a DR for it? Now, these are the things which you have to work. You have to look at the data center, the computation for the power sector, utilities, everything has to become all together in a juncture for this. So this is more like as an architect. I just wanted to share it with you that this is where we are working. This is what we are doing it for the industry, the collaboration. These are the public documents. Nothing is secret. It's in a one of an RFP. You can download it from the Google itself for that. That's I'll take the credit that designed by me. Okay, now the conclusion and the strategic takeaways from it. So resilience is the backbone for secure digital operations. You have to look at that from that perspective. Security is no longer optional. Now, no longer optional. You have to have it, and it has to be embedded by design. There must be a security framework for every architecture, whatever you design it for it. Economic sustainability and future readiness for key to long-term return of investment. So if you look at that from that perspective, whatever you deployed, whatever the architecture you deployed, the ROI must have to be there with the TCO, the total cost of ownership. The call to action is assess, adapt, and act strategically. This is where the more for that. So the final quote from my side: secure the core, fortify the future, strategize for resilience. Thank you so much for bearing me.